This is an Ultimate Global podcast. Hello, and welcome to our Daily Dose podcast, covering all about day-to-day global affairs. You're listening to Saurabh Kora and George Mavros from Sydney.
Hello, a very good evening to everyone who's joining us from Sydney and around the world. And every Wednesday, as you know, we discuss about this interesting theme of global economy, business, and technology. This time, we thought of discussing about this interesting topic of social media marketing. So much important it is becoming for all the businesses, individuals who are in different sectors. How important it is for them to remain relevant in social media, not only remain relevant but also market yourselves in a way that your customers actually want to follow your pages, they want to buy your products through the way you market yourselves, because it's all about how you package yourself and project in front of the world these days. And to discuss about this topic, we have got, along with George, we have got a special guest, Darren Saul from Suspended Animation, and he's doing some spectacular job with respect to social media marketing. So first of all, maybe we can start off with this point, that what all things you have been doing in social media marketing recently, Darren.
Thanks, Saurabh and George. Thanks for having me, guys. Nice to meet you. Can you hear me okay? All good?
Yeah, can hear you well.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I mean, as you mentioned in your intro, I love the way you put it. Marketing, and in particular social media marketing, is all about perception and image. It's 90% the image and perception you create. You have to back it up with substance and with quality and with service, but it's about the image that you put out into the world. So, these days, everything we do, there is an opportunity to create brand and further build brand, further establish your image and create the right perception for what you're doing. And that generates business results, referrals, collaborations. And so I do lots of different things when it comes to social media. I basically live on social media platforms. I love social media. So I'm always on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram to a degree, podcasting, YouTube, and anything that I think is going to be where my audience lives. But the key is really to embrace social media, to embrace the technology, embrace the digital space, embrace video, and try and find out what works for you, and you'll start to develop your own style and your own language.
Yeah, I think those are a lot of things to list down, but maybe you can just list down some of the recent trends. I see a lot of key trends in this industry for social
Yes.
media, and I'm sure George will also have some questions for you in this regard. That, say, for example, we see that videos are getting more engagements than text
Yep.
posts, or how can you make the boosting of your Facebook ads or Instagram ads more interactive? A lot of times we just keep on boosting our ads, but we don't actually know how to boost it, how to create our target segment. We go wrong in that. We go wrong in understanding what's really engaging well with the audience. So do you have anything to say on that?
Yeah, I mean, myself, I tend to be a little bit more intuitive, and I don't tend to really study in depth the stats and the the statistics behind the scenes. I look at them a little bit to a degree, but I tend to really follow the market, and I follow the feedback and the interaction with what happens. So if I'm trying something new and I see it's not working, I know not to do that again. If I see something working really well, I'll double down on it, and I know that it works. So as you mentioned, video is very powerful. Video at the moment, and I was just on another podcast about an hour ago, and we were talking about the power of video, and it's something that everybody has to embrace in the future because it's becoming more and more prominent. It's dynamic, it's eye-catching, it allows people to connect with the person behind the brand, and it allows people to reveal themselves and reveal the human side of things, reveal the cracks, and allow you to be who you are. And that is really powerful when it comes to building brand, because people these days need to trust you. They need to know who's behind the sign, who's behind the logo. You know, those days were over, when all we could do was hide behind a logo or an image. So video, definitely very powerful. I still think podcasting is extremely powerful. You know, video and audio versions of podcasting. And I always say that a podcast is another pillar within your wider social media marketing strategy, because you can have a great podcast, but unless anybody knows it's there, it's just a podcast. It's almost like a website. Unless someone knows it's there, nobody knows to go to it. So that's why marketing and social media marketing is so powerful, because you have to, it's really the exercise and the execution of driving people where you want them to go. That's the key. But, and one other point I'd like to add is something that's really important these days is repackaging and repurposing your content. Because a lot of people get very, very overwhelmed when it comes to social media. And they think, oh my God, how am I going to put so many styles of content on so many different platforms? Every day it's exhausting. I've got so much other work to do. But remember, it's about building a reservoir of content that you always have at your fingertips in many different forms. And that could be audio, video, graphic, written, and photo. And I think once you have that, you can then start to mix and match and add things together to create new ideas and create new versions of things. But a lot of the time you're repackaging and repurposing some stuff that you already have. So it allows you to leverage, and take long form versions of content and cut them up into smaller forms of content. And that's how you start to create a social media marketing strategy.
Yep. I would also like to point out to George, because George has been in several industries. You know, he has been working in sales and marketing. What kind of challenges have you faced, George? And you would like to pose a difficult question for Darren on the basis of your experience, which you faced in those industries.
Well, I don't necessarily want to post a difficult question for you, Darren, but I do have some questions for you.
Great, no problem.
One of the things that I find interesting about a lot of people involved in social media marketing is these categorical statements, and I'm not suggesting you're one of them. I'm just saying they'll come out and say, you have to be on all these platforms. You have to do this. You have to do that, and you have to do all sorts of things. I have many, many friends in business that have 5,000 followers on LinkedIn and 10,000 followers on LinkedIn and 20,000. Yep. I've got somebody that claims to have 42,000 followers.
Wow.
Whenever I do a seminar or a sales or marketing campaign for my business, and my business is virtually 100%. Well, to be fair, it's probably between 95 and 98% referral for the last 10 years. So I don't do advertising and marketing.
Yep.
Marketing is me, and if you like who I am, that's who I am. That's what you're buying into. Yep. Now, when I go and if I want 20 people to turn up at some event, I still do this weird thing which is called phoning people and emailing people.
Great.
Now, one of my friends who has over 10,000 people on his LinkedIn, he posted up about a event that I was doing, and his contribution to the people that attended was in actual fact nil.
Right.
And I find with a lot of social media marketing that people do these posts and they put all of this stuff up and even get 50 likes and all of this stuff, that it doesn't actually produce a result per se of a sale or of actually getting bums on seats. So when somebody is coming and talking to you, what do you do to try and establish what way they should use the marketing and what way they should use the media? So for me, I'm doing a whole lot of stuff here with Saurabh. I'm on the podcast on a let's say 3 to 4 times a week with him. Eventually, somebody's going to see the podcast and they're going to say, "Oh, that grey-haired old bloke, I don't like him," or they'll say, "That grey-haired old bloke, I really do like what he's got to say."
Absolutely.
At some point in time, they hear my name and they say, "Oh, yes, I know who he is." So I'm not looking to generate business per se. It is more about credibility and this is who I am. But if someone's coming to you, how do you determine what they put up, how they put up, where they put up?
Yep. Great question. I mean, how long have you got? I've got an hour. I can go forever on this topic. I love it.
If Sarab needs to leave, I'll stick around.
Awesome.
But we can have you back. We can have you back.
My pleasure. And you know what? I really love the way you put that. And I'd like to start by saying you're 100% right. I think people get caught up with social media because it's new and fun and funky and it's a trend and it's very powerful. But I always tell people you're a marketer first and foremost. You don't always have to use every single new bell and whistle that comes around.
Yep.
Sometimes, in fact, it's almost the right time to revisit some of the older ways we did things because they now are new. And, you know, sometimes a letter drop can be very effective. Sometimes ringing people, as you say, can be effective. Sometimes just emailing someone can be very effective. Some people get very, very good results from email marketing campaigns still to this day. So I always say to people, social media is one of the pillars in your marketing strategy. It's not the only one. You have to make sure that you're crossing every T and dotting every I that you can. You know, referrals is incredibly powerful. I do a lot of work as a photographer, and I still get 90% of my business by referral without even doing too much social media marketing at all for that part of the business. So, you know, it's really about understanding your business, understanding your audience, and understanding and reflecting on what is going to work and what's not going to work. So social media is very powerful, but definitely by no means disregard the traditional marketing methods because they can be as powerful, if not more powerful sometimes. So I'll start off by saying that. And sometimes I go, you know, give people ideas and strategies with regards to those, using those methods of marketing as well. But if we take social media marketing now in its own entity, as its own entity, first and foremost, the one mistake people make is they think, okay, I'm going to get on social media, I'm going to post stuff out every day, and I'm going to build my audience. But the one thing that they forget is they have to have a very clear vision as to who that audience is and who that audience is going to be. There's no use posting out loads of marketing material to the world, spraying and praying, without understanding where it's landing. So I always say your social media marketing strategy comes in two parts. It's your social media marketing and your audience. And you should be building your audience and actively thinking about building your audience all the time. Every time I meet somebody in the real world, I'll add them as a contact. Every time when I jump on LinkedIn, for example, LinkedIn is a very powerful tool because you can categorize and search for exactly the type of people that you're looking for to become part of your audience. So you do that and you send those messages and you ask them to connect with you. So you're constantly bringing people into your world and building your audience first before you start actually putting out content to that audience. And a lot of people forget about that step and they just start putting out content and they get no results because it's not landing anywhere. So a very important point is to really think about your audience and having a relationship with building that audience constantly. And then the third step is to actually start putting your social, or the second step is to put your social media marketing content together, and that will land on the right audience, which will give you results. Now, regarding your question with regards to which platforms, there are so many, I agree. There's LinkedIn, Snapchat, Twitter, TikTok, podcasting, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. I mean, you can go, and who knows, whatever else tomorrow, there's more. So absolutely, you know, it's all really about the time you have. If you're a one-man show or a two-man show or two-woman show, you don't have time to be jumping on every single platform all day long. You go bananas. So you have to pick out the one or two platforms where you think you'll get the most results. And which two platforms are they going to be? The platform where your audience lives. So again, you're thinking about everything in terms of where your audience is going to be. Where is your message going to fall? And then you work heavily on those few platforms. And then if you've got some time, you can add some more, or you can get someone else, a virtual assistant, to help you, or train up a staff member to become your social media marketing practitioner, or outsource it to an agency. You can go on and on and on. But, ideally is to start simple, but be strategic about it. And that's the thing that people are not doing. They're not strategic about this. And it's a marketing strategy, just like any other marketing strategy. So I hope that's kind of given you a little bit of insight, but I could go for an hour on just that.
That's very interesting, Darren. The points that you have raised related to email marketing and referral marketing, it kind of works pretty well. But I would also like to ask you this question. How would you differentiate that for a B2B marketing and a B2C marketing? Because both of them have some sort of similarities going on, but still there is a minute difference between how you market yourself in a B2B one and a B2C one, because a lot of times referrals also work in a different way. Social
Yes.
media marketing works in a different way. I see a lot of people asking questions related to how many times should we post in a week?
Yep.
How many posts should go in a particular day? What time should we post? Is this the correct time? Which platform should we target? And I think these questions vary from business to business, also from different types of marketing that we are doing. Do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I like the distinction between B2B and B2C. First and foremost, remember still that whether it's B2B or B2C, you're still, I'll use a term that I've stolen from other people. You're still P2P, which is person to person.
Yes.
So always remember that at the end of whether it's a B2C or a B2B relationship, there's still a person. And so the fundamentals of human interaction and psychology are the same. So whatever is attractive to one can still be attractive to the other because you're dealing with another person on the end. But I agree, you still have to be a little bit more tailored in how you approach a B2B versus a B2C. There are certain rules and regulations, and the rules of engagement and the language can be a little different with a B2B than to a B2C. You can get away with more with a B2C sometimes because it's more, consumer based. So language is very important. Strategy is important. You have to be thinking about how busy these people are and what they're doing. And when it comes to social media platforms, even the platform can be different. So LinkedIn is a little bit more geared to B2B, whereas you still can do a lot of great work B2C on LinkedIn, but it's still very powerful in terms of B2B. Instagram and Facebook and TikTok are B2C or just consumers or people to people and et cetera, et cetera. So the platform is important. Try and be contextual to the platform. Try and use the right language that will land with your audience. But at the same time, don't forget that we're all dealing with people, and the underlying factors within that drive human nature are the same. And that's just, again, about mastering perception, mastering attention, and mastering clarity in your message.
Absolutely. And I think these are critical points which sometimes we fail to recognize when we are marketing or we are involved in those marketing roles. Because, I personally keep on facing that query, not only where I'm working, but also in general, even for Ultimate Global Podcast, we keep on marketing a lot of things across different platforms. And we have been marketing a lot of stuff on Instagram and LinkedIn because initially we were on a lot of platforms, and then we tried to streamline ourselves into two different platforms because we saw that a lot of engagements were coming through Instagram and LinkedIn. And I hope you can understand why Instagram, because B2C kind of works pretty well with platforms such as Instagram and Facebook.
It does.
Especially in countries like Australia, I see that B2C seems to give good results in Instagram and even TikTok. I never thought that TikTok can also be used as a marketing platform, but how beautifully people and businesses have been using TikTok to even transfer or communicate a serious message in a very humorous way. is so
Yes.
much interesting and fun. I'm sure, George, you must have seen that on TikTok.
Yeah. I think one of the points that people seem to have forgotten is Darren using social media is absolutely no different to back in the day when I was using a telex machine
Yep.
and then a fax machine and then an email before TikTok, Facebook, and all of those things occurred.
Yep.
And he makes a very valid point where at the end of all the B2Cs, B2Gs, B2Bs, and all of that, there are Ps to Ps. People seem to think just because we're on social media, it's the marketing is different. It is not different. If you don't have a product and you don't have a service that is not attractive to a sufficient number of people, that would be market, then you don't make a quid. That would be sales and revenue.
Absolutely.
The difference is how you do it. But the rules of engagement are still the same. If I invade you, if I shove my foot through the front door when I was a door-to-door salesman in the 1930s or whatever, that was invasive. If I shove my foot through your door social media-wise, that can also be invasive. The difference is social media, if I put up a post that 6 million people around the world can see and 2 million people click on that post, I'm not invading them. They're choosing to invite me in. Okay?
Exactly. I love that point.
But the basics of marketing will never, ever, ever change. And that is, if you don't know who you are, if you don't know what you're selling, I will never recognize you as a customer.
Yep.
So if you don't know who you are and you don't know what you're putting out there, people won't get the message as to what you stand for. Right?
Absolutely.
So again, if we have social media and you and I and Darren, we spend the next 6 months and everything we post is about I'll take something that could be a little bit controversial, but it'll make the point. So we spend the next 6 months and every post that we put up is always about the Bible says, Christianity says, Bible says, Bible says, Bible says. And then Darren does three things and he puts a post up based on the Quran and the Muslim belief. The audience suddenly goes, what's going on?
True.
Because whilst they're both talking about religion, all these guys have banged on this way and then they do that. And so what happens is these peanuts who are celebrities that rely on social media to say, oh, geez, he's a wonderful person, she's a wonderful person. And then they allow some stupid post to go up that undoes the last 2 years of their marketing.
Yep. And ruins their brand or ruins their
They
reputation.
don't understand what marketing's about, Darren.
Yep. As I said, marketing is just another word for your reputation.
Because for 6 months you told me you were this person, and this post says to me, no, you're not. You're somebody totally different.
Yep. So true.
The problem with social media is also the blessing of social media.
Exactly.
If you're good at marketing with social media, you can get thousands of people overnight. However, if you make a mistake, you can lose millions of people overnight.
Very true. Very, very good point. And that's why you have to not pander to what's going to be liked and interacted with and commented with and et cetera, but you have to just be true to who you are and what you do and what you're passionate about. And then you don't make those mistakes.
Can I just make a point here, Sarab? I came across an interview or a podcast that Darren was doing with somebody on marketing whose name just escapes me at the moment, a lovely lady. Now, I liked the way that Darren handled that interview and what he had to say. I apologise, Darren. I didn't recognise your name per se when Sarab told me that you were coming on.
Oh, no
But
problem.
as soon as I saw him today, he had me, because I went, oh, that's the guy that I really liked last time.
Oh, I
And
appreciate
he's
it. Thank
talking
you.
the same way today as he was then. Now, what people that are listening to this need to understand, Darren didn't sit down and write a script. But what he did the other day when I engaged with him, unbeknownst to him, and today, is he is actually marketed himself to me. He's saying, George, I'm a bloke you'd be prepared to talk to. George, I'm a sane, sensible guy. George, I put forward things that you would be prepared to listen to. That is the essence of marketing. It is not about whether we have the CommBank logo this way, that way, whether it's 3 shades of pink or 14 colours of
100%.
yellow.
Yep. There's so much more
Everybody
than that.
talks about the brand name. It is so important to have a brand name.
Yep.
Tell me how Tupperware means an air-sealed product until they made it sound.
That's right. I mean, and people
Marketing is about, as Darren says, staying true to yourself. And then those that want you will come.
100%. And really good point, really good lead into, just wanted to make a point further to what you said earlier. And it's so powerful that what I love about social media marketing is that it's not invasive. It is, you basically are building your audience through quality value information. And if they want to engage with what you're putting out into the world, they will choose to engage. If they don't want to, they let it on go by. And that's the beautiful thing about social media marketing that's different from email marketing or SMS marketing or knocking on doors or whatever else, or mail letterbox drops or whatever, is that it's not, they're more intrusive these days because we're time poor, we don't have energy, we don't want to be distracted. And social media marketing is, let's open up my platform. If I like you and you've earned some trust and credibility, I'll see what you had to say today. If not, I'll let you go right on by and I'll look at the next one. So that's what I love about it. And that's why, but at the same time, that's why it's so difficult, because you have to do it well.
Brilliant insights, Darren. But I also wanted to ask you one more question before we end today's Daily Dose, which is related to this fact that a lot of times when businesses are trying to figure out a social media strategy, they have set out a strategy now. They are 2 weeks down the lane, but they're still not able to figure out what's going wrong with us. We're not able to get the leads. We're not able to get our customers. We have a lot of impressions. It has reached to 5,000 people, but it's not getting converted to the leads that we need for our business.
Yep.
So what would you advise to those businesses as to how they can look back into their strategy and think of revamping it, re-strategizing it? Do you have any tips for those kind of businesses or people who might be listening to us today?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, along the journey of putting together this kind of a campaign, you'll always have to be reflecting on what's happening. If you think things are working, and as you mentioned, if you're getting a lot of response and a lot of interaction to what you're doing, that's a good sign. So probably what you need to do is just keep going. Most people stop too quickly, or they want to change too quickly, or they think, that's not working. But branding, particularly in this kind of era nowadays, it takes so long to build. It takes 10 or 20 or 30 touch points before someone even starts to trust you and starts to like you and starts to do some research on you, starts to really understand who you are and what you do, because it's so noisy out there. So you have to stay with it longer and longer and longer, and you have to be consistent. And that's the thing. People want to swap and change and give up very quickly, whereas you have to put in the time. Like, I've been podcasting for close to 2 years, and only now am I starting to get some really cool opportunities and recognition to a degree because of it. And I just did it because I loved it. I enjoy it. I still do it. And only after 2 years of work is it starting to show some signs of revenue and some signs of recognition. So you have to do things for the long term. There's no short win here. Everything's a long game. But at the same time, as you mentioned, you've got to just keep an eye on what's happening. And if you think things are not working, tweak them and see what response you get. Always be listening to the audience and interacting and asking your audience as well, do they like this? Do they not like that? You'll be surprised what will come back.
Absolutely. Those are brilliant, brilliant key, takeaways which the businesses would love to have, because I know a lot of people who are just confused. They're always perplexed as to
Yeah.
what they need to do with their social media, and their social media strategy is completely haphazard, and they
Yeah.
don't want to re-strategize it, or don't want to rethink about it, or don't
Yeah.
know how to rethink about it. They want to rethink, but they don't know how to rethink about it, and that's the most crucial part that I
I
wanted
agree.
to derive from this session. Any final comments, George, starting from you and then Darren?
Yeah, I think just coming back to the point that you're making, or the question you raised, back in the old days when we used to think about people actually going and knocking on doors and walking into business, which still happens, by the way.
Yep.
You'd have a sales rep and you'd say, okay, well, how many calls did you do this week? I did 10. Okay. How many sales did you make? I made 1. So then you'd start to have a look and say to him, so what are you actually saying? How are you doing this presentation? Who are the people you're talking to? Right? Now, again, this is why I keep saying, most people think, oh, now I've got a website. The world is my, oh, now I'm doing on social media. It's the same thing.
Exactly the same principle.
If I was working with Darren and I like the campaign and we're getting a whole lot of people opening it, but nobody's actually buying it, I would sit down with him and I would say, mate, what do you think we're doing wrong? We don't have a strong enough call to action, right? So whatever you do, I don't care what the medium is. I don't care whether you're standing out in the street or plastering it all over TikTok and anything else that comes up. And currently Facebook, soon to be changed to another name maybe. You need to be able to analyse what's going on. But before you start, if you do not have a strategy in marketing, you are nothing more than a cork in the ocean relying on the tide and the wind as to where you go.
100%. 100%. I totally agree with that. And for example, if you're running a campaign and you seem to be getting a lot of clicks of your post that taking you to a website or a page and nothing else is happening, maybe the page is not so great. Maybe there's something
Correct.
not on the page that's not, maybe it's confusing. Maybe there's no call to action, as you mentioned. Maybe they're not quite sure what to do, et cetera, et cetera. So there's so many variables, but you have to track that process all the way to the end as if you're a customer and see and analyze constantly and reflect. So there's so much to this. But at its core, I just wanted to say to people that social media marketing is not complicated. It doesn't have to be complicated. You can break it down so simply. All it is about creating content that will educate and entertain these days your audience, that will create awareness for who you are and what you do. And that's it. And it's so simple. It can be done in very, very simple forms. You can do it quickly with the right strategies. You can put stuff together really quickly. You can have a reservoir of content that you can repackage, as I mentioned, and it doesn't have to take a lot of time. I get up every morning and I spend half an hour, 45 minutes on my social media, and that's it for the day. And I do a lot of work and might revisit it for 15 minutes later on in the day. But it doesn't have to take a lot of time. But what's the key here is it has to be consistent and it has to be authentic. You cannot have any other thing.
Yes.
Yeah, I think that's one of the major key takeaways from this session, that how important it is for you to map your customer journey, identify the touch points in that customer journey, identify what your pain points are, and then try to figure out how you can tackle those pain points through effective social media marketing that you are doing. And if something is going wrong, then just follow the tips given by Darren. And so important point that you raised, it's not about B2B or B2C, but it's about P2P, person to person. And I think that's one of the other key takeaways for people who might be listening to us today. But thank you so much, Darren. I think we would love to have you another time with another fresh set of questions from George and myself. But thank you so much for being a part of this podcast.
With pleasure, guys. I had a ball and I would only be too happy to come back.
Good to
Have a great day.
Awesome, guys. Thanks again.
Bye, everyone.